With every click, every like, every search, someone, somewhere is watching. Your personal data is the new gold, but who owns it? In a world where your entire digital life is being sold, traded, and analyzed, can you still call it yours? Buckle up as we dive deep into one of the most heated debates of our time: digital privacy and data ownership. To understand how we got here, we have to rewind to the birth of the internet in the 1990s, an era full of dial-up tones and slow-loading web pages. Back then, privacy was pretty simple. You bought something online, maybe signed up for an email newsletter, and that was about it. But as the internet expanded, so did the amount of personal information floating around. By 1995, the European Union saw the need for protection. They introduced the Data Protection Directive, the world's first attempt to give people control over how their personal information was used, which later evolved into the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, one of the most influential data privacy laws to date. But it wasn't until the explosion of social media that the real data gold rush began. Platforms like Facebook and Google weren't just building apps, they were collecting every interaction, every message, every like. Data became currency. What you were doing, who you were talking to, what you were interested in, it was all being stored, analyzed, and in many cases sold. Enter the 2000s. The internet had evolved, and suddenly, companies like Facebook and Google weren't just offering services. They were offering free services. But wait, nothing's free, right? So how are these companies making money? By the time we hit 2010, data was big business. Companies were tracking your behavior, selling your interest to advertisers, and creating profiles that knew more about you than even your closest friends. But how far could these companies go with our data before the world took notice? The answer came in 2018, when one name shook the entire tech world: Cambridge Analytica. Imagine this. A company collected the personal data of over 87 million Facebook users, and none of them had any idea. That data was used to influence elections, manipulate opinions, and fuel political campaigns. It was a data-driven scandal that exposed just how little control we had over our own information. The Cambridge Analytica scandal marked a turning point, leading to massive public backlash and legal reforms. This wasn't just a social media mishap, it was a global wake-up call. Privacy advocates and everyday users alike started asking, who owns my data and why aren't I in control? In this scandal, personal data belonging to millions of Facebook users was collected without their consent by British consulting firm Cambridge Analytica, predominantly to be used for political advertising. Cambridge Analytica used the data to analytically assist the 2016 presidential campaigns of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. From the fallout of scandals like Cambridge Analytica came new laws, big ones. Europe hit the tech world with GDPR in 2018. The GDPR was designed to harmonize data privacy laws across all of its members' countries, as well as providing greater protection and rights to individuals. It was also created to alter how businesses and other organizations can handle the information of those that interact with them. There's the potential for large fines and reputational damage for those found in breach of the rules. And in this moment, users were given unprecedented power over their data. Companies now had to ask for permission before collecting information. Sounds great, right? Well, in theory, yes. GDPR and similar laws, like the California Consumer Privacy Act, CCPA, promise to return data control to users. But in practice, the tech giants found ways to stay on top. For users, this meant an endless barrage of consent forms and accept all cookies pop-ups. While these laws provided transparency, they also showed just how entrenched data collection had become in our daily lives. Fast forward to 2024, we've got new privacy laws, new scandals, and new technologies making data collection easier than ever. Your smart fridge, your smartwatch, even your voice assistants, they're all collecting data. And now, the stakes are higher. AI is making decisions about us, what ads we see, what content we engage with, and in some cases, who we hire. In this hyper-connected world, data isn't just being collected, it's being monetized, analyzed, and sometimes even weaponized. This is where things get really interesting. The companies that once built their fortunes on your data are now pivoting. Apple, for instance, is marketing itself as a privacy-first company. Their App Tracking Transparency (ATT) feature was a huge move, giving users control over how apps track them. In its first year, Apple's ATT reportedly cost social media platforms billions in ad revenue by limiting their ability to track users across apps. But here's the catch. While Apple's playing the privacy hero, others, like Google, are still heavily reliant on ad dollars and data. And what about the data brokers? These shadowy companies that buy and sell your information like it's a commodity on Wall Street. Not leaving out AI has also introduced a new frontier of privacy challenges. Tools like ChatGPT, which generate responses based on vast datasets, can potentially expose sensitive information. This has forced regulatory bodies like the European Data Protection Board to assess the risks AI poses to privacy. Privacy in 2024 is more about balance. We want the convenience of smart technology, but we also want to protect our personal information. It's a constant push and pull, with governments, corporations, and individuals all fighting for control. However, there has been global response. It's not just the US and Europe making moves anymore. Japan, Brazil, India have all rolled out data protection laws inspired by GDPR, each with their own spin. But even with all these laws, the reality is that your data is still incredibly vulnerable. Just last year, we saw Meta hit with a fine of 1.2 billion euros. It raises the question, are laws enough? Or do we need a complete overhaul of how data is collected and used? So, who really owns your data? In 2024, the answer is still murky. While you technically have control thanks to privacy laws, in practice, companies still have the upper hand. But there's hope. As awareness grows, so does the pressure on governments and corporations to prioritize digital privacy. We're at a crossroads. The future of digital privacy will depend on how willing we are to demand change, and whether the tech industry will truly put users first. Because in the end, your data isn't just a bunch of ones and zeros, it's your identity. Join us for another insightful episode on Thursday. Thank you for watching.